What's going on, guys? It's Tom Mason here, back with another video, and today we are out to put in a camera trap to kind of get started on that local photography project I was talking about the other day, and hopefully get some deer crossing through the river. And you know, it's a beautiful day today, the sun's shining, the temperature's gone up quite a bit, that's quite nice. But I have found out one thing already, and that's that my waders have a small hole in above the foot, so I have quite a cold foot. But that's not going to stop me getting this done, because I think the location that I found is going to be brilliant. This is the location that I'm going to be putting my camera trap in. Now, I've been walking up and down the river here looking for different spots over the last couple of days, and I think this one is going to be the most successful. The reason is because I have a really nice bottleneck here. Some of the other crossing points are small crossing points where there's just one small track that leads across the river. But here I've actually got 3 tracks that converge into one much larger track off to my right hand side. That means that I probably have a higher rate of animals crossing, and I'm going to get more opportunities as the animals converge in one area to cross the river. When you're out camera trapping, that's the sort of things that I'm always looking for, is tracks that converge together, because where they converge you get a higher rate of animals. Areas that bottleneck animals through. You know, if you've got a track that leads through a very dense set of vegetation, the likelihood is that the animals will walk through that and walk along the track rather than trying to pick their way through the vegetation. You know, when I was out in the rainforest, I found this all the time, that, you know, the tracks that the researchers used to walk around were largely the best ones to put the cameras on, because they were well trodden and the animals would easily move through them. It makes camera trapping a little bit easier because it's a nicer position to put everything, but also because the animals are just walking through at a higher rate, you've got a higher hit chance of getting the images that you're after. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I've got 1, 2, 3 tracks that all converge into the right hand side, and of course the most likely place that I'm going to be putting the camera is over on the right hand side, because I know that more animals are going to cross to this side and go up that way, meaning that I'm more likely to get the sort of image that I want. So let's grab the camera and start looking for some compositions. Right, so I've got the camera in my hand and I'm just trying to work out the composition for this shot. Looking at images of animals moving through a landscape, there's a couple of things that I like to think about. Often I like my animals moving from the left to the right in the frame, because obviously I read left to right. I think it just looks a bit more natural when they come in from the left and are tracking right. Also, in this composition here, I've had a little look around, and from this side of the river, what I've got is 1 exit on the right hand side and 2 on the left. That means that 2 converges to 1. That gives me a nice triangle that's crossing the frame, and compositionally it looks really quite nice. The opposite way round, 1 going to 2, doesn't look as natural, and I think it flows better with the image. Now, in terms of deer, because they're quite a large animal, I've got really 2 options in the way that I can frame up. I can move back a bit and get the entire scene in the image. You know, I can get the deer leaving and full size going up the bank, as well as the ones coming across. Or what I can do is push the camera a little bit closer, really get it down in the ground, and try and get an image of one coming literally next to the, you know, up and over the camera, with the 2 entrance kind of holes in the background. I think is going to be a far more interesting shot. You know, one deer walking over the top whilst the other 2 walk, or you know, 3 or a whole herd are walking through the river. Is going to be far more interesting. Now, to do that, what I'm going to probably have to do is position the camera somewhere on this corner, right where the exit is, and get it nice and low in position. Now, if I do that here, I'm actually not going to get enough of those holes on the left hand side that I really want. So it might be that I have to come up a little bit further on the bank to get that in, and get one deer really coming close to me here would be quite nice. Now, I currently have a 24mm on the D3, but doesn't look like it's going to be wide enough for the image that I want. So I also have a 12 to 24 in the bag as well, so I might switch that out. It's on a different camera at the moment. I might just use that instead, put it in position and see if I can get a better composition. When I'm out framing up camera trap shots, you want to get it perfect before you set everything else up, because if you install the camera, get all the hardware in, it's a right annoyance if you think, God, if I'd have just thought about that a minute more and moved it to the left a little bit or the right a bit, the shot would have been so much better. So I'm going to do that for a little while, and once I've got it perfect, I'll get everything put in. Right, well, I've got my composition set up how I think I'm going to go for the first shot. Off to the right hand side is going to be the exit for the deer, and then I've got two entrances over on the left where I'm hoping the deer will come down, cross the river and exit out to the right. The camera I'm using is a Nikon D5100 and I've got a 12 to 24mm on that, so I've got a really nice wide view. It's close in so that as the deer walk out they're kind of emphasised in the frame, and then off to the background should be the deer coming down the bank into the river. That should look really quite nice. I'm using the Camtraptions housing for this one. Big shout out to Will who sent me one over so I could have a look at it, test it out and give some feedbacks and thoughts. It's a really nice housing, especially for anyone getting started in camera trapping, because it's super easy to use. It all comes with the instructions. All you got to do is basically mount your camera, attach the lens and just kind of screw it on and you're ready to go. Job's a good one. I think for people into long-term camera trapping who are used to building their own, there's a couple of things that they might miss on it, as the idea of, you know, being able to have wired out to your flash guns is one that, you know, I love to use. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good starter housing, and I've got to test it out in the field for long term before I can give some final thoughts on it. But it's looking like it's going to be pretty good, especially for anyone getting started in camera trapping. So everything's ready to go, my composition's sorted, it's now time to get the flashes in. But from the composition, this is a key point to think about how the light should be in your frame. Now, because I'm going to have the deer Xing out here, I'm going to need some light that's going to come down from the right hand side to illuminate them as they're coming out of the water. And then of course the problem is I've come down here, I'm going to get hard shadow across this side, so I'm going to need a light over there to give them a bit of oomph and kind of bring everything together. So because I'm only using a 2-light combination on this, because I'm using my wireless triggers, because they work better with this housing without me having to drill it out and change everything about it, that's not really the point of this housing. I'm just going to use 2 flashes, one off to the right and one over to the side, just to get things dialed in. So with all camera trapping, I tend to find that the most natural lighting looks the best. And to get natural lighting, the key is get your flashes up high. So my primary light for this is positioned up in the tree. You'll see it here up behind me. I'm just using a cheap like clamp mount that I got off Amazon to put that there. If you hang them under, you get a lot more weight. They can carry a lot more weight than if you try and put it on the top. And this is running at a quarter power. It's at 24mm, so it's giving me a nice wide spread. And the light is pretty much going from the corner down here with a little bit of grass all the way across to the mud that leaves out the other side. And that's going to give my top lighting down towards the deer and hopefully light most of the scene. Now the second light I've positioned a lot lower, and that's over here on a little ground stake. And the reason it's positioned lower is it's really just to give a bit of kick feel to any deer's head or whatever that's low here. This is running at 32 power, so really low, just a little bit of light just to kick that lighting in, and everything is mounted on the Fallow Capture wireless triggers. The box that I'm using is set up for wireless, so I'm just using those. It makes it really easy. I've actually found that so far the Fallow Capture triggers work really nicely. They're pretty cheap, you can pick them up. They work on AA batteries, and they give about a week's battery life before they die. That for a setup like this that's pretty local to home is absolutely perfect, so no problems there. But what I'm going to do now is that I've got my flashes set up, I've taken a couple of test pictures and everything looks pretty good. It's time to get that trigger in and do some test runs just to make sure everything's working. A little note on the flash for this one as well is that instead of using front curtain sync on my flashes, I'm going to use rear curtain sync on this. The idea is that as the deer are going to be going through, I'm going to trigger as the first deer leaves. And then hopefully I'll get a procession of deer with the flashes going off at the last bit to freeze a couple in. I think it'll make kind of a bit more interest to the image, bit of movement in it as well that could look really quite nice. And with that rear sync on the flash, just going to freeze that last moment and hopefully capture a nice picture. But it is bloody cold and my legs are freezing now because they're just full of water. So I'm going to get on, put the Scout trigger in, get everything in position, and then we'll do some test runs. Oh, that is cold feet. But what I've done is I've set to a 1 second exposure now in manual mode. And what I'm going to do is just get through the camera and see if it's going to go off. So we go like this. I'm in the water. There we go. 1, 2, 3. We're going to get 4. No, 3 in each set. That's going to be about perfect for what I'm trying to do. Yeah, that's going to go off again over there. So everything is looking like it's all ready to go. Camera's in position, lighting looks good. I've got the shutter speed right, everything's looking nice. It's time to put some plastic bags on it, get everything weatherproof, and then head home because quite honestly, I can't feel my legs. We'll come back to this in a future video, so be sure to stick around on the channel if you want to see more videos about camera trapping, wildlife photography, everything like that. If you've got any questions, if I went over things too quickly, drop it in the comments below. More than happy to get back to you. But until then, I'm going to get out of this freezing set of waders and make sure this image comes out how I want it. And fingers crossed, we'll get some really nice pictures in the next couple of weeks. All right, guys, until the next one, get out, get shooting, enjoy your wildlife photography, and I'll catch you in the next one.